All righty, let's get rocking and rolling here. All right, so good morning, active trader folks. This will be the first time we've done this. I'm going to try to do it probably at least once a week. Mondays are always good, I think, to look at some different charts and some different stocks and some different trade options. If I see a bunch more things, we'll try to do it more frequently as we go. But just a couple quick things on the market, and then let's jump into stocks. Make sure my trading platform's up as well here. So been in a little bit of a bearish trend the last 3-4 weeks. It's all good. Last week, pretty nice move back to the top. And if we look at the ES here, potentially with today's move, not a gigantic move, but trying to break out of this downtrend line. So it's a bullish move overall. And if just from my standpoint, here's typically what I'm looking at, and I keep it as simple as possible when I'm looking at charts. Is I'm mostly a trend trader with a little bit of a bit of a reversal trader at that. So trading with the trend or looking for a reversal potentially in like the daily time frame. Now I know Gabe is more of a levels trader, so he's looking at volumes. He's a breakout type of trader, and then Igor a bit as well on the trend side of things. But we all have our different methods, and there's no one right or wrong method. And I think it all depends on what you're trying to do, to what makes sense. But for me, it's all the daily time frame. So I normally, when we're in the income navigator service, I'm focused more on the weekly time frame because most of our trades are 60, 90, 120 days, maybe leaps or something like that. But in the active trader service, our focus is primarily on swing trade setups. So we're looking at days to maybe a week or two setup at most, but we don't look for anything that's too far out into the future on the active trader service, hence the name active trader. So I'm going to rely more on the daily. I really don't look a lot at the hourly or the 4-hour, but that can certainly help you as well here, depending on what your time frame is. My time frame for me typically is about 15 to 30-day trades, hoping to close those in about half of that time to 75% of the time at most. So just a quick overview from my standpoint of how I trade. So does the hourly chart really help you in something from a 15 to 30-day trade? Not necessarily, but doesn't mean you shouldn't look at it. And I do have it set up to look at. So we can also pop down to like a daily 1-hour time frame on things here. And we'll take a look as we go. So let's just quickly take a look at the market as I started to do and just give you a sense. So ES breaking out of that downtrend line here today, but it's not a serious breakout. This has been a pretty nice bounce all of last week, breaking through this downtrend line, depending on how you look at it here. MACD is running higher. And my favorites are, the MACD, the RSI, and the squeeze, giving me an idea of momentum. All of the momentum on the daily charts are moving higher. So that's all positive, but we're only getting back to the 21, which is the green line on my chart. So we're only back to the 21 EMA, and we're stuck there right now anyway. So we haven't, we're not breaking it significantly today. We'll look at some zero DTE stuff as well as we go through. But so we'll go down even a smaller time frame, but just to get a sense. So market bullish, a bearish trend with a bullish counter trend within there. Unless this thing breaks significantly higher here or we come back and make a new high, we don't have any type of a new higher high, higher low. So right now, I still consider everything to be in pretty much
on the call side either.
A bearish mode. Let me make sure you guys are muted. All right. So ES, take a quick look at oil because we can look at oil on here as well. Oil's been in a nice bullish uptrend on the weekly. It's in a little bit of a bearish downward move right now on the daily, but breaking out sideways from that trend. And if you really want to look at it this way too, you can also consider this somewhat of a symmetrical triangle as well. So with that symmetrical triangle, and you know, from my standpoint, if you follow anything I'm doing, triangles are my favorite. I don't care if it's ascending, descending, symmetrical triangles, and then wedges. Any of those patterns are my favorite to look at. And if you really look at oil here, this is pretty much a symmetrical triangle. And we can break out by the move or by time, and we're just breaking out sideways here. Nothing concrete to the up or downside yet on oil. So there's nothing really to trade on the short-term time frame yet until we get a confirmed break. Bonds just in a downtrend here, however, potentially bouncing off. You've got MACD reversing, squeeze reversing, RSI reversing on the daily. I'm not willing to do anything in the active trader service on that yet. Gold, I think, is also potentially decent setup here, coming down a nice uptrend. Got pretty steep at one point, but still an overall uptrend, a steep uptrend on the weekly. So the weekly very, very bullish. Nice pullback, nice bearish pullback here. Nice consolidation here on it. And then you're just bouncing nearly perfectly off this 21. If we can hold this uptrend line and the 21 EMA, then I think this thing moves to new highs. We'll watch for that bounce. Nothing here to indicate to me an entry on that yet. So anyway, I'd like to point some of these out just to get a sense of market direction. And right now, market direction is still, in my opinion, bearish with a bullish counter trend rally. NASDAQ looks worse than S&P does. We're not back at all to the uptrend line like S&P was breaking out. Here, we have not been able to break through the 21 EMA here or the 50 EMA. In fact, we're trying to do it today, and we failed so far. But MACD, RSI, and squeeze are improving here. You're in a bearish PSAR movement here. So, I mean, we could move higher, but again, there's nothing I really want to trade. I'm not ultra bullish here on any one of these because the markets are overall still, I believe, a bit bearish looking for that. So the reason I want to put these out is if you want to start putting on bullish trades, you're putting on bullish trades in a bearish trend right now. And I'm, as a trend follower, that's not always the best thing. Now, again, this is a nice uptrend with a pullback on the weekly moving higher. So the overall trend, I think, is okay on ES, but right now you've got a current bearish trend that you're trying to break, but then the NASDAQ, you're not. And if you even want to go dive into sectors, which I don't really want to get too deep into today, let's just look at tech. Let me close futures because we don't really care. Okay, so if we look at the XLK in here, this is not a good looking weekly chart. It's a bearish weekly chart. If we look at the daily chart, this is a definite bearish daily chart. Try to put some sort of a trend line on here, not even a perfect trend line, that you can see we're in a bearish mode on tech. So yeah, whether Apple's running into earnings or not, depends on your time frame. If your time frame's a couple days, great. If your time frame is a week or two, I don't know. You're fighting a downtrend right now on XLK, which is your Apple and your Microsoft. If you look at XLC, okay, so if we get into XLC, this is your Tesla and your Amazon. Okay, I'm sorry, communications is Google and Meta. So this is your Google and your Meta here. This is definitely bearish and nothing. You've got a little bit of a reversal opportunity happening here. Overall, on the weekly, you're still, overall bullish, but with a current little bit of a bearish trend here. And if we look at the XLY, which is your Amazon and your Tesla, and your consumer discretionary, right? So you managed to break, break out of this downtrend decently and a pretty big gap up today. So you've got to figure the reason XLY is up is it's Amazon and Tesla are your main two stocks. So I just want to pull that out and take a look. And the last thing I want to point out is semiconductors still in a bearish trend. And we're right back to the trend line here. And we're struggling with the 21 EMA and the 50. Even though MACD is reversing higher, RSI is moving higher, and the squeeze momentum is higher, we've had a nice counter trend rally, but you're right at the trend line. So again, I'm cautious on going into any new significant trades while the market is overall as weak as it is. And we would need a breakout, maybe it come down a retest and then move back up. But right now you've got, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. There's nothing on the semis that would make me want to necessarily get long on anything here today. So I think finding trades is a little difficult overall because the market's not giving you a whole lot of anything. All right, so let's take a look at some of the stocks, and let's go through stocks here, and we'll just run through them a bit. So Apple, and I'm going to focus more on the daily chart, and I'll shrink these a bit. So we'll look more at the daily charts here on Apple. We could even redraw this now. I don't love the fact that we don't have enough touch points on this line. Okay, maybe here we have a few more. Okay, so we have some decent touch points. Boom, boom, recently, boom, and then today. So Apple, nice bullish move on this today. Running into earnings, trying to break back above this descending triangle. Don't necessarily love it here. I mean, can it run into earnings? Absolutely. Got earnings coming up in just a few days on it, so it's something to keep an eye on. But you've got to wait till Thursday for earnings on this, and you've got a couple other things that are going to happen in the meantime. Apple, I think this move has been overdone, but as far as a active trade, the active trade to me was back down in here when you bounced off of this previous support area down in here and moved higher. That was the trade. If you're not in it or you didn't hit it down here on this swing trade move here, I don't know if I'm chasing it. You've got a gap now in here. Even though you're breaking above the 50, the 21 still below the 50. You're still in a downtrend. You really haven't broken it substantially. You're below the 200, which is lower. I think there's a lot of overhead on this particular stock. So I would be cautious on putting on anything with Apple here. But if you're playing something for a really short-term 1 or 2 day, maybe, but I think your opportunity was back here when the momentum reversed, and now you've missed out, in my opinion, on it. But again, you can certainly play it down here. I like to catch something when it's just starting to make the turn versus getting going a bit. Is there any trade here on Microsoft? No, I think this thing is fairly ugly. Yes, it tried to break this downtrend here on the daily. So weekly, momentum is definitely down. The daily, the momentum is still, in my opinion, down. You tried to break out. You couldn't hold it. We're down today in here on Microsoft. And Microsoft is down about the same amount that Apple's up, which is why tech stocks are doing a whole lot of nothing today. The Qs are pretty flat. So I don't really see a trade in here. I'd consider, and I'm not a big go short type of a guy. It's not, when the market usually goes up over time, trying to be a bear is not always the best play, but I would have considered on Friday that this was a potential, opportunity to get shorter here, but you had the breakout of the downtrend line. So I think that kind of negates it. Nothing that I want to touch on Microsoft in here. There's much better setups. Amazon, same type of a thing. You've got a nice downtrend going here. Now we got a breakout, today, but we've given up all of the gains on the day so far, and we're right back down to the 21 EMA. Yeah, you're trying to break the downtrend line. Bullish PSAR reversal today, which is nice. You've got squeeze starting to reverse MACD. So I think it's not a bad opportunity to get in, especially now that you pulled back to the 21. I think you could potentially play something here, but there's better setups in my opinion. Meta is, I think, a lot more interesting for a trade. So you do have a downtrend going here. We'll move the highs up. So you do have a downtrend. We had the earnings break to the downside. I will usually give any giant gap down on earnings. I got to give them 3 days. So it's my 3-day rule. So 1, 2, today is day 3, to see if we've got any type of a bounce or if it's even a play. I'd maybe even wait another day since you have an inside day going today. And I don't know that, I would think maybe you're so close to filling this gap that I would hold off. However, I do think Meta is a really good opportunity in here for a trade. So I think being oversold as much as we are, MACD is still falling. RSI is now oversold. Doesn't mean it can't stay there for a while, but now it's oversold, which gives me, I think really an opportunity to consider it. Squeeze has fired to the downside here. So I think there's just no rush to get into Meta, but I like Meta for the long term. So I think as soon as you get any stability, and if we look even over at the weekly, I think you got to fill this gap potentially. If we don't, this gap, you've got a gap above and this old gap over here to fill. I would feel better if we filled this old gap so that we can maybe move higher, fill the gap that we just made last week. So I'd be cautious on Meta overall. So Google in here, earnings are out. This thing blasted to the upside. I don't know that there's a trade in here. I don't think I would get long on something that gapped up here. Now it's gapping down a bit today. It was above the 3 ATR, which is a good reversal spot for me. You've also got a bit of a hanging man candle here on the daily. So I think a bearish play is possible. Okay, I think it was more possible Friday, but I think it's still possible. I don't think I would be getting long, even though things are looking decent to the long side underneath. You got too many problems in here to me to deal with. So I haven't given you a whole lot of anything. I'm just running through some of the big names right now. NVIDIA, we've got a gap fill that was filled, created some support back in this line. This support has held up pretty well. So I just keep it going because as it moves from, support, and then resistance, we gapped above it here today. Does this again turn into support? Breaking the downtrend line. MACD is moving up, RSI is moving up, squeeze moving up. I don't think NVIDIA is a bad play in here for a run into earnings. So for me, I think this is one that you could do. So for me, I have 2 primary vehicles for trading here. So again, this is just me. My 2 primary vehicles would be, number one, I'm always looking at, as a premium seller, credit spreads or put credit spreads are my number one. I love a good put credit spread because I can be a little wrong and still be right overall. However, if I think something's running fast to the upside and you want to catch it, to me, then would be a butterfly. So it would be a call fly. Those would be my 2 trades that I would put on here. Apple, like I said, it's run too hard for me a bit, and it's struggling with its downtrend, so I don't know that I want to do anything. However, if you think it's going to run a little bit more, you've got some resistance in here. Definite resistance going back here to these highs. So can it run up to this spot and stall? before earnings? Yeah, maybe, until Thursday. I would, if you wanted to play this bullish, I would use a butterfly, which would be a low risk, high reward trade. If I'm playing a reversal off of something here, then potentially a put credit spread. So those are really my two. If I'm swing trading, it's going to be put credit spread. So I'm swinging off some kind of a reversal and next leg higher or move higher. If something's breaking out and running because it broke a level or something like that, then I would be looking at a call fly. My problem with call flies is you have to be right on direction, you have to be right on time, and you have to be right on the amount of the move. If the move blows through your fly, you can lose unless you're going to put on a broken wing butterfly. So a broken wing butterfly if you think something's really bullish with no upside risk, I think would be fine on it. But if you're not right on all three of those things, which makes butterflies really difficult, I think you could also stack butterflies as well. Not exactly the rut fly, that tiered fly that we do, but something along those lines. You could still do the same type of a thing in a NVIDIA or something else. But I do like NVIDIA here. I think it's an interesting play. I think you could run into earnings. It came down. It broke the 21. It tested it earlier today. So a bit of an inside day, which is just some indecisions, not necessarily a reversal going on here. And everything down here is pretty bullish. So I think NVIDIA is a possibility here for a trade. So I like NVIDIA, okay, for a potential trade here, but we'll watch and see if the market can hang in there. Tesla, just gigantic gap and another gigantic gap this week. Tesla flying. This was the point down here where you started to reverse on every single. You were overbought, reversing. You were overdone on the squeeze. The momentum reversed to the upside. The MACD reversed to the upside. You had another chance here when we broke the 21 and broke back above this previous support line, which we held on to, bounced off of, and now we're taking off. I think Tesla was a good play then. It was overdone to the downside. I don't think there's a play for me anymore on Tesla. It would have been a play potentially today. Netflix, though, I think Netflix is a potential opportunity for a trade in here. So if we're looking at Netflix, I'm kind of ignoring the weekly, but the weekly on most charts is not as big of a deal, but this is still a nice uptrending move. So you've got higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Okay, now you came right back down here, and I mean, technically it's going to be a little bit of a lower low, but you slammed right on the 21 EMA on the weekly, and you've held there for 2 straight weeks. It's where you hit there 3 weeks ago. You held there with a decent, somewhat of a doji candle. If we get any follow through on Netflix this week, I think it's a good opportunity, even though momentum is still down. But I do like the fact that you came down here and you're basing out pretty nicely. MACD is improving. I'd like to see maybe the squeeze indicator give me a yellow bar or two here. And I think Netflix is a really good setup. So I like Netflix for a potential put credit spread. I just need 2 yellow bars, or at least something down here to show me that RSI and squeeze momentum may start moving to the upside. So again, I'm mostly a trend trader and I'm going with momentum, and I'm looking for areas that reverse for me. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Just we're all a little different. Okay. And Kevin, if you think we're going to have a big push higher in ES, I mean, obviously put credit spread, naked puts, any of that stuff I think would work. You can, I don't know what your vehicle is that you like to trade, but I would say put credit spreads. I would say you could put on if you want something low risk, high reward, depending on your account, you could put in if you think we're going up 200 points in a specific time frame, then put a butterfly on at that move. If you think we're going higher in 30 days, if you look at, and I don't know if you want to trade AES or you want to trade SPY or you want to trade SPX, I would consider, if I thought we were going 200 points higher on SPX, and I thought we were going to do it in the next 30 days, I'd go out 30 days. Okay. And I'll just use SPX as an example, but if I was from an active trader standpoint, I mean, you could always sell put credit spreads, nothing wrong with that, nice defined risk. But if you want to make more money and that's just not enough for you, that's too boring and slow of a trade, something to look at here would be I'd go up, and right now about 200 points, or the expected move in 30 days on SPX is all the way up to about 5,300. It's not quite 200 points, but it's close. So if you like that, I would run up here, and you could put a butterfly on, maybe a 50 wide butterfly, something like that. It's a low risk, high reward type of a trade. In here. So did I not balance these out too well? Oh, yeah, way too big on the upside. Sorry about that. So this is what I would probably consider here would be something along this line. I mean, I would go 30 days. I'm looking at the expected move, which is also your 200 points, roughly, not exactly, but it's close. It's about 140 points. To the upside. If you have more, then I think this is a good possibility. If you think that this might jump too much for you, you really can't. Okay. You could possibly do something along this line where you're risking a little bit more, but you're giving yourself more upside. To me, I would just stick with something like this. I'm not going to say you're going to tag it in the middle, but all you need is over the next couple of weeks, a bit of an up move, and this T+0 line is going to start to lift. It'll expand this tent. So low risk, high reward to me is always a butterfly trade. You could do it on ES. You could, so if that's your thesis, this is the ultimate in low risk, high reward trades. The butterfly is always the best low risk, high reward type of a trade. I also do like, let's go down here a tad. And that's 25. Quick look. Okay. You could also put on something that's a broken wing flavor on it. You can move it up higher if you think that's going to be an issue. When I, with these, oops. So funky because you have 25s down here and 50s. So okay, this might be an opportunity in here. If you want to do something like that, hey, if we drop, I make money. If we go up, I make money. Okay, so this is a bit of a, but if you blow through it, you have a little bit of a problem here. So but it's one of these things that, hey, if we start to move up, this tent should start to lift a bit. And I think that's a good opportunity, depending on, again, your takeaways. So anyway, I do like on ES. Well, which one? I'm sorry, I deleted. This is SPY, but ES would be the same type of a thing. Are you looking at a broken wing or are you looking at a symmetrical? Okay, obviously when you do a symmetrical triangle, your loss is whatever you paid to get in. If you're doing something that's along these lines, okay, you have no downside. Okay, as we go, this should lift, but if we blow through it, okay, now you've got like a $2,000 potential. It's the difference in your spreads. So it's about a $2,000 loss if you blow through it. For me too, if we hit the center of a triangle, okay, on these types of trades, if we hit the center, I'm usually taking my profit. It doesn't mean I'm hitting the full center. If we hit the center early, though, I take profits because I'm afraid that we blow through. Or if you're just okay with just taking the full loss because you sized it properly, then you just let it go because it's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck at expiration, and then it could also come back down in. So a couple of different things there that you can take a look at, depending on what's your expectation is. So Netflix, I just like it here. I think Netflix is setting up for a good put credit spread, but I want to see something that gives me a little bit more bullish of a move, and I'm not seeing that right now. So I want to keep these up. So with the market pretty much flat today, Netflix not doing anything, but I think Netflix is setting itself up. Costco is probably one of my favorites to trade. We've got a Costco trade on right now. We've also, I believe, closed a Costco trade already in this account. So for active trader, I'll wait for that to pull up. But so we have closed a Costco trade already for a 50% winner. All right. So what delta on a put credit spread? We'll put one on, Don. So we'll find that. But typically, I'm going to be about one standard deviation for the most part. So it's around 12 to 15 delta on the whole. All right. So anyway, I like Costco. I think this trend on Costco has been great. You get a pullback. You're not quite to the 21, but this has been a nice pullback on a stock that I think is in really good shape. Potentially some more weakness to go on the weekly, but let's focus on the daily chart here. So on the daily chart, just a nice sideways action. But more recently, you've got MACD rising, RSI is rising, squeeze is rising. You're in a 4-bar squeeze right now with momentum technically looking to the upside a bit. Now I think if I think a put credit spread is worthwhile here, but I already have one on in Costco. It's up 7% in active trader here. So I'm not going to do anything right now. And for that Costco trade, I have the 690. So I'm down here at 690 or so. What did I put on? The 690, 685. Something like that. So this is my put credit spread that I have on currently. So I'm just going to mark it with that. But so this is our put credit spread. I'm bullish overall. I'd like to see this thing flip to a bullish PSAR, but nice candle. Okay, so you had a decent hammer candle here, kind of a second hammer candle, but the reversal was on. So it's a perfect reversal in here with momentum all moving forward. I love the trade. So I've had this thing on for a while, since this hammer back here, but otherwise this trade is just moving sideways and it's just making nice little profits as we go. So I do like Costco. I would consider putting on a put credit spread here in Costco if you don't have anything on. So I like Costco. All these charts are going to look the same. So CRM, bearish move, okay, had a pretty good drop. CRM is another one I like. I do like as a company out there. Not that that should cloud my judgment, but earnings aren't till May 29th. So I have 30 days on CRM. We had a nice drop. We have a gap to fill in here. Okay, so there's an overhead gap that needs to be filled. You've based out decently here. Now you're starting to get, after the squeeze fired, you had a pretty long squeeze and then finally fired to the downside. So this thing was telling you, hey, you're in a squeeze, which direction are we going to go? Okay. And RSI had been telling you, hey, we're heading lower. So the bet was to the downside. Not sure I would have played it, but the bet was to the downside on this. Okay. Here, as this RSI had just been falling, and it really started to, fall. And then on this break down below here, okay, before we hit the squeeze fired, you got the signal that this was probably heading lower. And you also had a bearish PSAR. So everything was pointing towards a lower break of the squeeze, and you got it. Okay, but now we've based out in here a bit. So I like where we are here, potentially for a reversal trade. I would think a put credit spread is also potentially worthy in CRM. Not one of my top trades right now, but Adobe is. So I love the fact that I think we've come down nice, orderly. We've bottomed in here. Okay. You've got MACD heading higher. You've got RSI heading higher. The squeeze, okay, it's not in a squeeze, but the squeeze momentum is heading higher. Now you've got the first squeeze dot here. White is a extremely tight squeeze versus the red, which is a standard squeeze here. So I like where we are on Adobe. So to me, Adobe is another spot that I would look in, but we already have a trade on Adobe right now for this service. So we're already in Adobe, and I have the 450, 445 on. So I'm down here. Okay, so there's my put credit spread that I put on. This trade is now 20 days old, so it goes back a little ways to here. But we've just been moving sideways, so it's a profitable trade. This Adobe trade's up about 6% in 20 days, and I like where we are on it. And we're almost ready to trigger a bullish PSAR signal if we tap one of these dots here. We're doggone close to it. We'll see what happens if the market can get going, potentially. I just still think, as I mentioned, I think the market is bearish. I think this was a counter trend rally. I am not willing to get too awful bullish yet. Now, AMD, I do like the trade here in AMD as well. Came down, nice reversal candle here, which coincided with MACD, RSI breaking from overbought and moving higher, squeeze reversing, moving higher. I think AMD is not a bad looking trade in here, but you got earnings this week, so I got to hold off on that for now. I really don't want to play earnings, but earnings is tomorrow on AMD. So we'll see if can it shoot it higher. If it does, this was a good opportunity. If you want to put something on here because you think momentum is moving to the upside on earnings, then you can always play a butterfly. It's just, I just find them very difficult to try to do in earnings because you have to be right on the time, the direction, and the amount of the move. Micron. I like Micron in here as well. I don't know when Micron earnings is, but we'll take a quick look. So Micron earnings, not for a while. So it just had earnings back here. So there's nothing here. I like this bounce off the 50. You're moving up. You're struggling with the 21 a bit here. MACD's been moving higher. RSI's been trying to move higher. Squeeze, the momentum's just been down. But it's a nice pullback on Micron. I think this is something to just keep an eye on for now. All right, and so I'm just running through a bunch. Roku, I love the fact that we're basing out down here. We've already had earnings. So you had earnings that were less bad than expected. So it still doesn't make any money, but this is not a bad, to me, something overextended that's reversing higher. Except MACD is giving up the last 2 days. So let's see if we can get above this 21. I think Roku is setting up. All right, so there's a couple big ones. Let's go into a couple charts that I think are interesting here. And I know, what did you guys point out? You would mention, let's grab what you guys said, and then we'll look at what I said. All right, so GM, not bad. In here, you've had a pretty good, lid on this thing right here. So a nice resistance area, that we can't get through, couldn't get through, can't get through it today. But down here, you got MACD running higher, RSI running higher, almost to overbought levels. And then you've also got squeeze momentum in a squeeze, firing to the upside. I don't think it's a bad opportunity on GM here. So I think there's potential trade. I'd want to see a break of this resistance level, though, personally. So do you have, a bit of a rising or ascending triangle here, absolutely. So if we break to the upside, I think this thing's a good opportunity. I think I got to wait on this. So you got to break the resistance here. So that would be my take on GM is almost, but not quite, not worth it here, because if you fail for the umpteenth time here and come back down, thanks. The weekly, not too bad, it's good momentum. So I think the likelihood is there, but you're just struggling to break it out. All right, so there's GM. Let's take a look at UPS in here. So UPS, a pretty good downtrend on this thing, just hasn't been doing well at all. However, it's a bit of a triangle here, so more of a symmetrical triangle setup on this, with MACD rising, RSI rising, squeeze rising. You're breaking through the ascending triangle to 21. I think UPS is not a bad opportunity in here. You could probably put on a couple different trades here, certainly a butterfly. And it's up to you guys. If you like trading, if you like to buy calls or something, you can certainly buy calls. You can do whatever you want. Again, as a premium seller, I'm always looking, okay, we have a move, we have an opportunity on this thing. Even the weekly looks like it's improving. I'm mad that Toss deleted all of my indicators. And as soon as I switch to Schwab, I'll lose it, probably everything in a week. But anyway, RSI is rising. Everything looks good here. It's finally breaking out of this downtrend in this triangle pattern that you've been in. Today is a bullish PSAR signal. I like UPS in here for a potential move. You can see that it can move. It moved all the way up today, about 2-3 points, and then sold back off, struggling with the 50. Not a bad opportunity. I think you could put something on. If I was trading it, again, for me, it's about 25 to 30 days on a put credit spread. A butterfly is a possibility here. So let's look at two different potential trades, just so you get a sense of how I would trade it. And my first one would be right about the expected, or right about either the expected move or one standard deviation move. Here, I'd like things that have at least a couple wide, and it's not bad. Can I even get, how wide can I get? Okay, this is not a bad trade in here. So somewhere around the 140 mark. If we looked back at the chart on the 140, the previous low was 141. And then so you've got a swing low at 141 that could potentially be support on this thing. So I think 141 is not a bad place to place my short. And what I like to get is, I'm shooting for, it's 25 days. I like to get at least more than 10% on this particular trade. So getting $56 on 343 is fine. So $56 on 343 is 16%. I'm going to typically get half of that. So 8% return, it's not too bad. Even if I had a 10% return, you could go 5 wide on this. Okay. I'm getting, it's still pretty good. 64 on 436. Here, this is still almost 15%. So this is not a bad trade on UPS here. I'd consider this. The other thing you could do would be, do you want to put a butterfly on at this thing? I typically look at the expected move. I will typically butterfly somewhere around 12 to 14 days. The 11-day might be okay. Let's go 18. Maybe the expected move, something in here. If you want to put on a fly with no upside risk, this thing's going to cost you $80. Okay, and $80, they'll pay $265 if you nailed it right and you pin it, which again, the chance of that happening is not heavy. But even if we move up and break through a little bit here, you've got No risk to the upside. Yeah, you're going to make 14 bucks, which is not the goal of this trade. I don't really, the 14 is not exciting. It's the fact that if UPS does start to run, you've got no risk to the upside. So I think that's an interesting opportunity. Okay, you could do a symmetrical triangle here as well, which is fine. You're going to risk 39 bucks to try to win 152. Not that you'll get to 152. I usually shoot for about 100%. So if I'm going to risk 38, I'm going to try to win 38. Okay, so I try to just get 100% return on my money on here. So if it moves up and hangs in here at all, so I think UPS is not bad. This would be a decent trade setup. So those would be a couple of my trade ideas on that, if that makes sense. So yeah, UPS, not too bad. Let's look at Amgen. Okay, so do I not have Amgen? Maybe I don't. My watch list is pretty pared down, so I don't watch a lot. So Amgen is one of my favorites in here. I like Amgen down here. This is on my list of potential trades today. Nice hammer candle, pretty close to the bottom. Moved up, hanging around this 21 EMA, which has been moving sideways. MACD is rising. RSI is rising. Squeeze is rising. It's in a squeeze. So this thing's ready to pop, in my opinion, in a squeeze. And the momentum on this thing is up. So if I was playing this, I think Amgen is a good trade opportunity for me here. And if we look over on the weekly, we came down. Yes, it's bearish, but B, you're holding the 50 EMA with MACD rising, RSI rising, and the squeeze hasn't changed its momentum, but it's getting longer. I think this is not a bad place to get long Amgen for a trade, so I like Amgen. Hopefully this is making sense to you guys. Kind of meeting, but I think we've got a little bit of time. All right, so let's go, and I actually want to put this trade on. So Amgen. All right, so yeah, our trades, coin can go up and down a ton in a day. So let's look at Amgen. All right. I guess I didn't realize that Amgen's earnings are in 2 days. So probably not going to put this trade on because I've got Amgen there. So anyway, you got the idea how I pick a trade, but now I can't put this trade on because I get earnings in 2 days. I'm really not willing to hold through earnings on Amgen. The last earnings, it tanked pretty heavily. On the last 2 earnings, we've had major sell-offs. So I will hold off on Amgen, right? So cut that one out. And I really haven't researched a whole lot of anything. So Amgen's out. I would also look at potentially a ratio spread on it. All right, ARM. All right. ARM's in a downtrend, but you broke well past the 3 ATR, which to me is an overbought condition. RSI was also overbought at the same time. MACD starting to increase. RSI starting to come back. You've got 2 bars to the positive now. So this ARM is starting to reverse back up. Yes, it's in a bearish trend. Here, you're close to setting a new bullish PSAR reversal on it. You're holding the 21 over here on the weekly. I like this stock. I'm not going to put this trade on, but to me, this is not a bad place to play in here. But we're in a downtrend. I'd like to see a little bit more sideways improvement on it, but I think this would not be the worst trade in the world to take a look at. All right, Henry Schein is another one that if you look at where things are, a decent downtrend. okay, that we've broken out of. So we've broken the downtrend on this particular stock. You're in a squeeze, an extremely tight squeeze right now. Look at all of the moving averages just converged on this thing. So this one is interesting, but you've got earnings on the 7th. So I really can't put much on in here unless you wanted to make a play for a run into earnings. But they don't have enough options on it. So we're going to avoid this one. Like I said, there's a lot of similar setups down here, but you've got earnings in the way on a few of these. Moderna is another one. I think that looks interesting. You're coming back up here to a previous resistance area. On this. Okay. An ascending triangle. We're right back to it on Moderna, but I think you have earnings. mRNA. So earnings in this one on the 2nd. So just too many earnings this week to give you a lot of really good trade opportunity. But I love the setup in Moderna here. And if you really thought that earnings could be decent for this company, last earnings, pretty solid gap up. If we go back a little bit here and look at the weeklies, okay, last earnings, pretty solid gap up and move. Earnings before, okay, kind of moved sideways for a week and then it took off. And then the earnings before that, it headed fairly low. I do like this area. I potentially would put a butterfly trade on in here. So, yep. All right, let's take a look. Cat. All right, so cat, yeah, it's certainly in a bearish trend. All right, so you're still in a bearish trend. Earnings gap down. It took a huge hit on earnings. Went past the 3 ATR, which is a nice reversal area potentially. MACD, for me, I don't know that MACD is giving me only one bar today. Still, we were in a squeeze fired to the downside, but it's a little lagging. RSI is trying to recover. Weekly is still nice. And so the weekly still looks good. It was a nice pullback to the 21. It had gotten a little far from itself. I don't think this is a bad area on this. It just makes me nervous that you've got so much overhead here, but you could potentially run up into that. On a gap down, I usually give things 3 days. It'll be a tough one. It's a pretty big reversal weekly candle here, which is not a bad thing. I would just like to see a little bit more momentum to the upside, and I'd be willing to give up some downside on it. Let's see if we can move sideways or stay in this range here. And if we can, I think I would take a look at CAT, but I would maybe wait till this downtrend line gets broken on it. Gilead, it's not bad. I mean, obviously you're in a downtrend. Okay, so you're obviously downtrending, hence the 50 and the 21 heading lower. Earnings, pretty good sell-off. Nice doji candle here and a nice move today up. MACD rising, RSI rising, squeeze rising. I don't know where this thing, maybe there's even some support right in here. If you could look all the way back to somewhere back in here in May of 23, it's pretty much this pivot high, something along those lines. So we came down, slammed right on it. This is not bad. Okay. I'd consider doing something in Gilead here. Okay. Yeah, I think this is a good support level because all the way back here, support. Okay, we came down, slammed right on it. stayed right on it, and then today bouncing. It's not bad. Not a bad trade here. I would consider a put credit spread or something on this. Probably something in the neighborhood of like a 64, 62-ish type of a thing. And these are wide spread. Wow, these are massively wide spreads. I don't know that I could trade this thing at all. The spreads on this thing are just so wide. I don't know how you could trade this, to be honest with you. The spreads on the 18 aren't bad, but the spreads on the 25-day, terrible. Spreads are really bad. I don't know that I could trade this thing. Johannes, I just don't know I could trade this thing. Spreads are so bad. I don't think I could get in. I'd never get out of this trade, even if I had a winner. All right, Goldman Sachs, new all-time highs today in Goldman. I mean, Goldman to me, this was it. Now, this was your ascending triangle. You broke out, beautifully came down and touched it, and then bounced off of it. I like Goldman Sachs. I think the move is well underway. So I would not put a put credit spread on here because this move is just so well underway. However, I think if you wanted to put a butterfly trade on in Goldman Sachs, and I think too that financials are going to help lead this market a bit. So if I put a butterfly trade on this, I could maybe do something. I'll see if I can share it in a minute. All right. So yeah, I think a butterfly trade here is not bad. This was probably Friday was the time to get in because it was bouncing on Friday. Friday was the day to get in to this trade. Now we've kind of missed a chunk of the move, but here is a potential trade. I do like this trade. All right, so here's an opportunity. And one of my favorite broken wing butterfly trades is kind of a 2-to-1 ratio butterfly. So I will go out to the expected move, which is about 445, okay, in about 18 days. Okay. I'll go 5 up on here and 10 down here. So 2-to-1. So this call spread here is 10 wide. So the call debit spread is 10 wide. And then this call credit spread is only 5 wide. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio, which gives me, no risk to the upside. And if we run and blow through this, because Goldman Sachs is starting to move, if we blow through this, we're still going to make a pretty good amount of money. So we'll still do pretty nicely, $256, okay, on this particular trade. Okay, the downside here is 204. So it's really, risk one to make one. But if you move into this trap and you can double it and get $500, $600, I don't know that you can pin it, but I think it's a risk one to make one for my style of trading. Which from many active traders, you want to maybe risk one to make two. But I think the risk reward is not bad. I'd put this trade on this way. So this is not a bad trade. I'm actually going to put this trade on because I kind of like this trade. And we'll see if financials are going to help lead this market. But this is a risk one, make one. What the heck? We get filled, we get filled. We'll keep an eye on that one. So I'll throw that Goldman Sachs trade on. It's not terrible. What was another one of yours? Netflix and Verizon. We covered Netflix already. Let's go back. And we'll wrap up here soon. I wish there was more trade possibilities out there. I just don't like a lot of, I just don't like the market here. Market's just, it's just hanging. So again, I think Netflix is a good possibility. I mentioned it earlier. I think you've got, on a really short time frame, you've got a nice triangle here. I think you got momentum to the upside, even though you're in a downtrend here. I don't mind Netflix either. I would consider Netflix potentially, but I want to see us break this triangle. So I'm going to hold off on Netflix to break that triangle. If we can break it to the upside, tomorrow or the next or the downside, either one is the direction I'm going to go. All right, then Visa, more financial. Financials have been decent in here. It's not a bad trade. Okay, MACD's been trying to rise. RSI's been trying, and now they're tipping over, and you're in a squeeze. It's struggling with this 21. I don't think I would want to play this thing to the upside unless I can break the 21. Yeah, you've got some momentum to the upside here, but overall you're in a downtrend. I would want to break the 21 and potentially this 50. I would do a put credit spread on it because it's not super bullish right now. And I think you could still get a good spread trade on here and, wait a couple days. Did I say Visa? Did I say Verizon? Okay, I meant Visa. I looked up Visa and maybe I said Verizon. I'm going to give you a couple others that are interesting. AI here, I think is very, very interesting. Okay. AI came down, bounced, but wins earnings probably this week. No, there's a play in here. So earnings aren't until the end of May. Like this thing has just come down. It's bounced, was well past the 3 ATR, which as the 3 ATR is at a 45-degree angle or more, I don't touch the trade. Right. And look at this basing out and then moving higher. Everything is moving higher in lockstep. I do like AI here. I think it's an interesting opportunity play. You've got earnings a month away. So I think we could play AI as well in here. You're back to this 21, which could potentially be a bit of a support level on it. So it's something to watch right now. I don't know. I certainly think you could have played this as a put credit spread. I still think you potentially can play this as a put credit spread. It could break this 50 on the RSI here. And I'm going to look at one more thing on this trade or on this particular one. And I got to switch over to trading view on it. So give me a moment on trading view. Sorry, hopefully this is helpful to you guys. And if it is, great. If not, sorry. This thing gave a fractal entry back here. So that's a good positive. And then I just wanted to see where the VWAP is. I mean, this was a perfect move down in here. The VWAP from this swing low was right at the bottom of this thing where we bounced and then ran higher. So trading above the VWAP on it off of this low, everything looks good. I think AI looks pretty interesting here. I would consider a put credit spread here. I don't love the size of it, but I think AI looks interesting. I think DigitalOcean looks interesting here. Same type of a setup. A nice swing, moving higher. This thing looks really good. I think Palantir, which is heading into earnings, looks really interesting. It's broken this downtrend line, but you've got earnings. But I think Palantir here looks really good. Earnings are on May 6th, so nothing you can do. I think Baba, the play was down here on this reversal, okay, and then it broke the uptrend line. If it had come down and touched this, it would have been a perfect bounce or play. But I think China stocks look pretty good. Okay. Coin, we're still in the downtrend. Okay. But I like MACD improving. I like the squeeze improving. You're in a squeeze here. You're holding the 50. You're just struggling between the 50 and the 21. But I do have a put credit spread on this trade. So I'm pretty happy with that trade right now, even though it's down a bit on the day. Earnings are just a pain. Earnings are in the way of everything. This is also on Palo Alto here. This was a nice breakout. Okay, kind of a really slow basing move here. This was a beautiful opportunity in here. I think you just have to be wary you have earnings. So if I have earnings coming up on this, and let's take a look at when our earnings. They're not for a month. So this is you broke out pretty strong. You hit the 3 ATR, and then you pulled back on the session today, but you've got a breakout and you're at the lows of the session because the market is just flat. This is not a bad setup either for a potential put credit spread with earnings in the distance. Kind of like this trade as well. So I don't mind Palo Alto here. You're starting to open up to the upside, gap up today. I think this looks decent. I'm going to take one look at something else here on. Okay, so you're way, way, way ahead of any of the VWAPs on it. So I like it. I think this is an interesting trade. I think we have to hold this line in here, but I don't think this would be a bad trade. I'm actually going to pop a trade on in Pan W, which is Palo Alto. I'd like to move to the upside here. Still in a downtrend here, but as far as the PSAR, but I love this move up on it, and I think it's a good stock, good company. So I like this, and I think if we were down below these lows of 265 here, I think we would be okay heading into earnings. So let's put a trade on in here. Okay, so for me, I'm going to go out again around 25 days. May 28th are earnings, so I'm inside of earnings here. I like 25 days on these put credit spreads. I like 25 to 30 day, somewhere in there. I'm going to go out about the one standard deviation around that 14-ish delta. I love the fact that I can get 5 wide. I can take in, $100 on 400, so I'm getting at least 25%, which is pretty nice for me. All right, and I will size it to. I will size it properly on here. I will risk 5% of this account on a trade, which a 2x loss on this would be about $500. So let's see, $78. We'll put the trade on. We'll see. I have not fussed with either the Goldman Sachs, which is moving even more now. So Goldman Sachs has been moving up. It's really moving up. Okay. I probably should have just gone with it back then. This Palo Alto trade. I'm gonna leave it here. Yeah, 243 is a nice move on that Goldman Sachs. It's up and down. So we'll see. I'm gonna leave it at 244 right now, and we'll see. All right, so there's two trades in here on the session. All right, the last thing I want to do is I want to just take a quick look. I've got a meeting coming up, so I want to keep moving. Give me one quick second. Yeah, sorry. So I'm good for a moment or two. Just give me a second. All right, let's just take a quick look at zero DTE trading. And where would we go on zero DTE? All right, so I do have a different chart setup for zero DTE. I'm going to be looking at SPX. Okay, I look at the 15-minute and I look at the 3-minute chart here, and I'm just trying to make sure I get direction right. So I'll look over. I don't put a ton of stock in UVXY and so forth in the UVXY split, but UVXY, it's now down at lows of the session. The market is definitely pulling back. From its highs. So down here was probably the right opportunity to get in on it. So first thing is, what's the 15-minute telling me the direction is? Right now, the direction is down. MACD's falling. Okay, we're tipping over here on the stochastic momentum. RSI is heading down, pretty much all morning. And then, squeeze is totally flat. So overall momentum is a bit down right now. So I would have liked to have gotten in with a call credit spread back in here. You can see the momentum is down. We're heading lower on the day. I mean, a call credit spread, still not the worst thing in the world. I don't want to force anything because I'm on here, and that would be my biggest fear, is trying to force a trade while we're on here. But give me a second to switch screens. Still overall, all right, we got filled in Goldman Sachs. So that one filled. It's still not bad. I'd like to see if we start to make a move higher, but all the internals are heading lower. And this was the chance to get in with a call credit spread. Why? I mean, I'd like to see do we pop above a 3 ATR band? Keep Bollinger Band on. Do we pop above the 3 ATR band? Yes. Okay, you're overbought on the day, but we can still ride that higher. We broke back inside. Okay. And I'm really now looking at primarily just RSI and MACD to see what direction. Right now, there is not really a sense of direction. You're kind of flat in here for the session, and being flat. Yeah, I'm really focused on, MACD, RSI, and the squeeze a bit. The stochastic momentum I do like as well. I like to see him, overbought and then swinging a different direction. Okay, the stochastic momentum is down, maybe heading higher. MACD, it's not bad. So this does not set up for any one direction for me right now. The overall direction on the 3-minute is just flat, or on the 15-minute over here is flat. Okay, it's a little bearish, but it's not. Just all these indicators don't agree. Okay, we're just flat, which would make me think that potentially a iron condor would be a good trade for today. So if I was looking to potentially, I'd like to be directional, but an iron condor might be okay on the day. The momentum is, do have the rising, 21 and 50 EMAs, not quite overbought and reversing. I just don't like it. It's not giving me a really clear signal. So you either have two choices today. I could do and my typical trade will be around 5 delta. Okay, an iron condor would be where I kind of just don't see a direction on the day. I mean, I'll try to grab Gabe's stuff from the morning too and get a sense, but do I have any direction on the day? Not necessarily levels, just do I have direction? Because I want to play, typically I want to be in a direction with a high probability trade. Right now, there's not much direction. I would typically go out to around 5 delta. I like 30 wide for me. Okay. I'd like to get closer to 50 cents if I can, but it's hard today. And then maybe I would go back down here to about 5 delta, go about 30 wide. All right, so 95, 90, 95. And then I'm looking at levels on SPX. Is the 51.45 something that looks potentially hittable today? I don't think so. Gabe, I don't know if you're on, but I think 51.45 would be, and 50.70 to the downside. Both of those are outside the overnight highs, and they're outside the overnight lows. So I think an iron condor here is not the worst thing. I think we're a little later in the day. It's almost 11 o'clock. Earlier in the day, I would have probably put this on. I'll probably avoid it today just because we're late. But hopefully this makes sense. This is where I will typically look at, but I'm waiting to see if we get a direction. We're just not getting a direction, and I'm too late. You can still, you can still do it. So no, not every day is a good day. I mean, I don't even look half the days because I'm busy. Today I wasn't busy, but I was looking at stocks. I want something that's going to give me a direction where I can get in at the swing low. And, you're getting down here where we didn't get overbought or oversold. Man, MACD is just dead, or RSI is just dead center. I think an iron condor here probably would work out today. Even at this time of the day, I think it's okay. All right, so now MACD, we're starting to get a little bit of a reversal here on MACD. You're getting stochastic momentum starting to head up. You're getting RSI starting to head up. Doesn't have to be overbought or oversold. It just needs to be moving in your direction. Squeeze momentum's down. If I saw something like this too, potentially I'd switch over to ES and I would be just buying ES. Because I don't know if I have enough time for a SPX trade. I don't go smaller than 3 minute now. You can go 1 minute, you can go whatever, but I typically don't. 3 minutes is my time frame on it. And I'm really looking to see, do I have a direction on the 15? And really the 15, it doesn't have a direction either. MACD is rising, stochastic momentum is rising a bit, RSI is just kind of flat. It's a perfect flat day. And I think the market doesn't know what it wants to do. UVXY is dropping, which should be pushing the market higher. So if anything, it would probably be a time to scalp. I'm not going to do it, okay, but it would potentially be a time to take a look at. In here, so on ES, we're now in a squeeze. Momentum is starting to reverse its way higher. This is where this is a pretty good hammer candle right here. I would have seriously on this tick here, or even this tick here, I think this is where you could also scalp potentially some ES as well, especially if you break the 21 EMA. But I'm not doing anything, so nothing to do. UVXY, here is your VIX short-term futures. Okay, it's a triple leveraged. So it's good for intraday direction. If it's falling, we're typically going to be bullish a bit for that time period. So you can see we've been bullish here since about 10. Okay, on UVXY, and then on the advanced declines, they've been positive all day above the zero. They've been tailing off, but they're still positive here. Doesn't mean anything, but again, I would probably consider doing something to the put side at this point. Anyway, that's it. I don't really see a trade. I don't want to force anything. It's not clear enough for me. This down here was probably clear enough to put on a trade. I would have most definitely down here, especially when we tagged the 3 ATR here, but everything was changing momentum. MACD swung its momentum. Stochastic momentum was moving higher. RSI was moving higher. Squeeze didn't really change momentum till back in here. But I think this was a good opportunity to put on a put credit spread for the day down here. I don't know if we would have gotten out, but I would have certainly been watching it. So, all right, that's enough. We've been on this for a long time. Appreciate you guys hanging. We'll do this more. We put on a trade so far in Goldman Sachs. So right now there's a Goldman Sachs butterfly trade on, and then we've got a Palo Alto trade, which we're not getting filled on. This thing has moved decently in Palo Alto on us. It's falling down, which should be helping us, but we're not really getting filled on Palo Alto, even though we're heading lower. Maybe because of the width. I mean, it's somewhat wide, but not terrible. All right, I may just inch it down little by little here, but Palo Alto, big move earlier in the session, has kind of given back its momentum. We want to see Palo Alto stay above this this line. I'm not too worried about it long term. If I don't get a fill on Palo Alto, I'm not going to worry about it. All right, so there we are. You guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see everybody back in Discord. Take care. See you guys later.